So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's version of a soldier's story, the interview series in which we interview members or former members of the Jamaica Defence Force to hear their story. The person we're interviewing today is by the way, I'm Winston Sutherland. I'm the host for today. The person we're interviewing today is no stranger to you all. You have seen him almost every day. He's none other than Dr. Canute White, served in the Jamaica Defence Force. That's his young soldier face. But I put it up so you can sort of remember, go all the way back with him. This is the picture you're more familiar with. You see that every day when he does the knowledge break. And you might see this of him sometime when he's on his speaking engagements. So today we're going to hear from him, and I'm going to be asking him to speak in a minute about his life in the JDF, his story of being in the JDF, why he joined the JDF, everything about him, as much as he wants to share with us. And then we'll talk a little bit about what he's been doing since his life in the JDF. So without more ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. White. I'm going to ask Dr. White to introduce himself to us and to tell us his story. Welcome, Canute.
Thank you,
Welcome.
thank you, Winston. Hey, I like that picture. That picture is
You do?
yeah, it's way back
Way
in
back.
Newcastle, I must say, right?
All
About
right, it's a Newcastle
23.
picture. It looks like it, yes.
Yeah, about 23. You know,
Right. Okay.
I
So,
won't tell my age now, but I'm
yeah,
much less than
we
that.
can guess.
All right, all right.
So, what do you want to tell us about yourself? Introduce yourself properly to everybody.
All right, good day, good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this, right? Everybody. Look, I have this acronym that I would use to describe myself. It's great, right? And we start with the G. Oh, I grew up. I'm a ghetto man, Waterhouse, right? Way down in the inner city back in Jamaica, where a lot of things happen, but yet still I'm out of it. But look, growing up was with a matrifocal single parent home, challenges, familial challenges, but poverty was one of the feature that actually affected me growing up. But the R is for religion. Yeah, I believe in God. I am God fearing. I am religious, so to speak. So there's a higher power that I deal with. Employment. JDF, and I've gone through a number of employment. DNG, remember DNG? Yes, and get it. It's no red stripe, I heard. I have
Yes.
worked there. And academics. Yeah, that's the A. And I have started my academic journey back in the JDF. I've been left St. George's College with just 2 subjects. I stayed in the JDF and become academically viable, I'd like to call it. Having done a number of master's degree and my doctoral studies there, and and we can talk more about that, Winston, in due time. And in terms of talent, I am an author, I'm a podcaster as well, and many other things that I can do. But as we go on, you'll hear more. Yes, Winston, that's me.
So let me go back to the G. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Waterhouse.
Hey, it was a struggle in terms of the violence, Winston. We talk about, yes, inside the familial challenges, but there was also a communal challenge, right? In terms of the violence, the gang warfare. Every day I would look and I see someone dead on the corner. And it's really, for me as a child, disturbing. And it's in terms of the inside now, there was this poverty, there was this not having anything to eat, right? There was this absent fatherism, so to speak, and I have to rely on and teachers to even give me lunch money, we call it, right? Yeah, because there's something to eat, because there was that sort of challenge within the home. So growing up in Waterhouse was tough, inside and outside, in that time.
So tell me about your siblings. Do you have siblings or was it just you?
Yeah, I have siblings. I have several siblings. In fact, what we call half siblings as well. And
Well, I can figure what that means.
yeah, so we have a lot of siblings all around, but there was this connection with about four of us, and it increased to seven after a while as those half siblings come in and resides there. So yes, I do have siblings who are very connected. We have our challenges, but guess what happened? Blood thicker than water, right?
Absolutely. And when you say single parent, I'm assuming that you mean your mother. It could be father, but I'm assuming you mean mother.
Mother, matrifocal, single.
Matrifocal, right,
Yeah.
right. Right.
Mother Winston, she was a tough going, not a I'm not afraid to say that my mother was illiterate, right? That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to say that,
that's
right?
that's how it is. Yeah.
Right. She was struggling in terms of intelligence. And but guess what happened? She was a hard worker. She was able to keep us together, right? Doing odd jobs, crash program. There was a few who are old like me. No
It's in the
crash
70s, the crash program.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, right. Yeah. So when you reflect on your mother, what was it about her that sort of, you said she was illiterate, you said she was a hard worker, but what did she instill in you in that you take with you?
I always say that leadership is critical. My mother was a leader, right? And I learned that from her. Despite not being able to academically advance herself, she was a leader. She knows what to do, when to do it, and how to get people to do it, right? She was a person who I won't say which party, but she was somebody who liked to be at political meetings, Winston, right? And there's little me behind her, being in the crowd.
Right. So you sort of were
Yeah,
you had that connection where you followed her wherever she went.
that connection. Yeah,
That's
that's
interesting because I have a similar experience as well. I used to follow back on my mother a lot.
yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of, so you did that, you had that from her. But in terms of your development and your schooling, you said you went to George's.
Yeah.
What was her influence in your school life?
She was a pusher. Hey, you have to get it done. She had said something to me that I will never forget. If I was intelligent like you, I will move the world. I will
Imagine
be a
that.
shaker in this world. So it tells me that she had that intention, but she said, hey, I cannot do it, so I'm expecting you to do it. So in terms of my journey now, I would take that from her. Hey, you have to do it. You have to get it done.
Absolutely.
And yeah, she really has an influence on me and where I go.
Right. And the other four siblings of you, did they sort of pursue similar route to you? Where are they now? Are they?
No, they're not done that. In fact, I was the only one, not boasting, but I was the only one that came out of the family with degrees and so on. They
Okay.
did the
Yeah.
family in terms of siblings, right?
Right.
Niece and so on that have done well. But in terms of
Right.
siblings, I was that one who was more focused and evolve out of the challenges and do what I have to do. In fact, I was driven by the familial dysfunctionalities within the home, and it drives me. I often say to people that is a motivational factor. Perhaps
So,
if that wasn't going on, I wouldn't be,
yes,
where I am academically.
I see what you mean. Okay, so you grew up in Waterhouse, a very tough area. I would imagine that you said you saw a lot of violence, dead people, and so forth. But I would imagine that you saw a lot of police and soldiers. Did that have anything to do with you joining the army?
I like that question, Winston, because yes, whilst at George's, I wanted to be a medical doctor. Back then, every parent want the child to be,
Yeah.
doctor or lawyer,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that was in my mind. Yes, I've seen the policemen, the soldiers, and I think that was one of the influence because every youngster love to see a military man dressed, a woman for that matter, dressed and look militant and say, oh, I love to be like that because we often play cowboy and Indian and police and thief at school, right? And yeah, okay, fine. Look at the soldiers, look at the police officers and want to be like them. I tell you, Winston, and we'll talk about that perhaps later. I've tried the police force.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so just tell me now then, what happened?
All right. I tried the police force and twice. The first
Right.
I went to Slim, go home and eat some ripe banana man and get some weight. I was about 127 pounds, but you know, so I went back home, get the weight, went back, and out of about 200 and something, because you know, with the police force and even the military, a number of persons would gather and you know, and it's off. And when it sieved off, I was in the sixth, you know, of the six people who were actually left. And somehow I failed the academic.
Right.
And part of it, I didn't pass the test and I was sent home. I said, okay. And then military. And you know, I started at 3GR.
All right. So tell me about your military journey. Now, you didn't work out with the police. Tell me about joining the JDF. What was the process like to get into the JDF and start the story there now?
For me, the process was very easy because even though I failed the police test, you know, not saying that the JDF test is easier, you know.
Exactly,
but
right.
For me, perhaps after you know, having experienced that and so on, I really did well in the test at Curfew Barracks back at 3GR in camp. And it was a lot of people who came, and I ended up about 11 of us, and it was 1988, July 1st. Yeah, I can remember that. And I started there, and I did my training, Gilbert party again.
So, okay, so that you're just before Gilbert shop, but when you tried to join the JDF, did Waterhouse have anything how did they see you as coming from Waterhouse? Did that have any impact on you?
Oh no. Oh no.
All
Winston,
right.
I'm not sure how it is now, but back then, we're talking about 1988.
Yes.
Look, in my mind, there wasn't any sort of discrimination as it relates to where you come from. Because
that's really great to hear.
The best soldiers, you know, I hope nobody beat me up for this, but the best soldiers come from the inner city.
Right. Okay. All right. So you
don't beat me up for that, Winston.
I'm not even going to go. But you know, people are people, and if you're a good person, you're a good person. But I know that there have been times when people would frown upon soldiers who are coming from the inner city. So I didn't know when it stopped, but I knew there was a time when the JDF wasn't keen to take people from inner city areas. So
I think, Winston, I think that it depends on who you are, as you have said, right? Exactly. Because you come from the inner city, and in my mind, back then, Winston, many soldiers were from in my mind, from the inner city and from the rural area.
Right, exactly. And that's another whole story because the rural area people get treated differently as well.
Right.
All right. So you passed the test, and then what happened?
All right, passed the test, came in for training, you know, and Gilbert happened.
Gilbert happened. And then what?
You're talking about July.
So you were in the middle of training. You were in the middle of training when Gilbert hit in what, September?
Right. Yeah, Gilbert
so
happened.
Young sweat.
Young. And guess what happened? Out there on the job with the JPS workers. You know, I don't think I'd gone to range yet, Winston. So I wasn't in the activities. But a number of my because in 3GR you have the reserve batch, reserve, and you have the permanent soldiers, you might have known. So those persons who have been there as permanent soldiers, they have gone to the range. So they were out there. But for me, I had to, you know, be
Absolutely.
at the
Right.
jail there, you know.
And
I pause.
and during Gilbert, where were you deployed? Was it mainly Kingston or were you out in the country parts?
I was in Kingston, most of Stony. I can remember some of those light poles that I planted. You know, when I say, no, I planted that one.
Really?
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Even though I say, oh, once it's there, you know, maybe they've changed it really, but I had planted one right there because you know it was important for us because planting a light post was you know each one you know was demanding
Yes.
and therefore you know where you have it.
Right. So you planted light posts in Gilbert. What was the sort of relationship that you had with people? Was there any sort of people stories, any conversations that you had with people during Gilbert?
Hey, you know, it was fun really as a young soldier, but that's the first time I have had octopus. Yeah, I had never you know that before, but during Gilbert, it was a good taste, right? And after that I really haven't had that anymore. But
How
that
come
was
you get to eat octopus during Gilbert? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I don't know. It was well fresh and frozen, you know, during Gilbert. But guess what happened? We went to a home and you know we you know started to partake in what was going on there, you know, and octopus was the meal. Trust me, Winston, it tastes good.
I have no doubt. Yeah. I think it's right. Is that the same thing they call squid? I'm not even sure, but that's another conversation. All right. So you were living the life during Gilbert.
Tell you,
All right.
sort of.
Okay, so Gilbert came, you planted your light post, you eat your octopus, and then you moved on. What happened after Gilbert and everything gets back to normal?
When everything get back to normal, yes, naturally, you know, continue training, graduate, become a soldier for the first time in the 3rd
Right.
Battalion, attached to Bravo Company. Always get there early and leave there last, you know. And you know, it was a good journey for me because I was a reservist and that's when I was with DNG, then on Geddes, as
Oh,
well. Yeah.
all right. So
During
your
that time.
DNG is your your daytime job or your sort of other job while you're
Right.
serving in JDF.
Right. That time.
And how does that work for some people who might not be aware of that?
Okay. I will be in every Thursday and second weekend, I guess, right? And then you will have also 2 weeks that you will spend an annual camp. You know, so it was like that. Naturally, your employer would have to be aware that you're going to be serving your country and you would still be paid or given time off, you know, and serve your country and back. So it was like a part-time military job, and you know, and training was a part of it because it's all about training most of the time.
Absolutely. And so how did people treat you at DNG knowing that you were a soldier?
Like you're a Superman, you
Right.
know,
You can do this
and
because you're a soldier.
yeah, you know, and it's like I used to be in the production area, right? So you know
Right.
the machines and so on, and
Yes.
if a box gets stuck, so Jay, mark you, it wasn't just me who was in the reserve,
The
right?
other people.
So,
Right.
yeah, the other soldiers. But we were always asked to do the quote unquote impossible,
Impossible
right?
things. Yeah.
Because we are soldiers.
Right.
So they treat us like that. And also treat us with a level of respect, as expected, because
Yes.
we are serving our country.
Right.
Right.
Now, I was listening to a little video clip of you when you talked about transitioning in the JDF. So you started
Right.
off in the reserves and then you moved to what was the transition that you made? And you talked about somebody came, they were vetting you, and your wife says that you loved the JDF more than her. What was that about?
All right. I transitioned from 3rd Battalion, started in 1992. So we went to Newcastle, right? And after Newcastle, I was sort of vetted for a special part of the JDF, right? HQ. And when I was being vetted, my wife then said, hey, him love the JDF more than he loves me. And I figure, I'm not sure where that came from, but I suspect it's the loyalty and commitment to the JDF that she had seen, right?
Yes.
And you can akin that to the spousal relationship, that loyalty and commitment that you should have to your wife. But maybe
Yes.
she thinks I am more about the JDF than she, right?
Yes. That's amazing. So you went to Newcastle, that's what, 4 years after joining, and now you become a regular soldier.
Right.
Right. And then what was Newcastle like? Tell me about your life in Newcastle. Did you have to do the same training as a recruit, or was this a transitional intake? What was it?
Yeah, ask my instructors. You have to do the same training, right?
Okay.
But I always boast by saying, yeah, I was a recruit twice, you know, so I am a super soldier. But you know, but yeah, I was to do the same training, despite the fact that I was a soldier, but I'm a recruit again. And Newcastle was very challenging despite being a soldier, because guess what happened? You know, starting after 4 years, you're starting again. Yeah, and it's rough, you know.
So which intake was that?
68.
Right.
Yeah, 68. You know, and you know some of those instructors.
Yes. Oh, yes. 92. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I must have.
Who was your squad corporal and your platoon sergeant?
Wow. Sergeant Graham. I can't remember. Sergeant
Rennie Graham?
Rennie Graham.
I first met Rennie Graham at the company. Yes.
Corporal Goldburn.
All right.
Yeah, you know, and I love to hear that wagon coming down into the cookhouse.
Yeah.
That for me was you know, a super memory of Newcastle. You know, just having do a road run, training. And trust me, Winston, you would have aware that the military training in the JDF is not easy. It's
Not
very
easy at all. Yeah.
You know, people need to understand that.
Fabulous. So when you passed out from Newcastle, when you left Newcastle, where did you go?
All right. I've been passed out from Newcastle, walked down straight into forming 1 year JDF. I said forming 1 year JDF because I was one of the, you know, a part of the first set of soldiers in the 1 Engineer Regiment JDF when it was formed, coming out. So yeah, so we were the creator, the makers of 1 Engineer Regiment JDF.
Right. Is that right? Okay. Let me just go back a little bit to Newcastle. What was your sort of best and worst memories of Newcastle?
Well, I talk about the wagon coming down into the cookhouse, right?
Yes. Okay.
That is always a good thing for me. However,
so that's because you were hungry and it's food time. And,
yeah, come on, Winston. Recruit always hungry.
Well, I did my 22 weeks, so I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, recruit always hungry. So that wagon going down, I was, you know, I got my first box in the face, right? From my squad corporal. I was like, oh, that what was for me a worst memory. But yeah, you know, you understand that it's training. And indeed, you know, he's a very respectable person. You know, we become good friends. You know, right? Yeah, and that was for me, you know, a worst memory.
Does that mean that you were a foodie and you were at front of the line? And
was in front of the line. Guess what happened? despite, you know, and I'm not afraid to say this, despite being a soldier before Newcastle, yeah, I maybe learned the bad ways. So I was maybe sloppy and parade.
Right. Okay, that's what you mean. Yes, yes, that
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, sloppy and parade. So, okay.
Okay,
So
okay, okay, okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
I must mention this though, Winston, the recruit boxing, yeah,
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
ring.
yeah.
Yeah, that to me was, hey, my party Wade, good friend of mine, always a good friend of mine. So he becomes a 001 eventually.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, and always a good friend of mine. We always talk a lot in Newcastle, and we were happy when they,
That's not the bandmaster Wade though.
no, not the bandmaster
Which
Wade.
one? Which Wade is that?
68 intake. With W, I think it's W, but he 68 intake, he become a 001
All
eventually.
right.
He
Okay,
was a
I'm
good
trying.
son.
Okay.
When we heard that two of us, we were going to be boxing in the ring, we were saying, okay, well done. And he said to me, White, I'm not going to lick you, right? We're just going to, par a bit. And you see, Winston, when I get into that ring, and I believe what my friend Wade said,
Is that you?
Wade, bam, knockout. So,
I knew that was coming. I could just see that one coming.
and I was knocked out in the ring.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
That was fun, but yeah. And we continue. I mean, come on, it's training. We continue to be good friends, and hey,
Yes. Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's a story. Yeah.
It's a story.
Uh, so, okay. So you finish Newcastle now and you come down, you go to ER. Tell me about life in ER and everything that happened there. What did you do there and where did you go and what were you
All right.
involved?
Life in Europe was exciting because now, I become a regular soldier. I'm no longer in the reserve. That's
Right.
one.
Right.
And secondly, it wasn't about being on the road, patrolling. It was more
Mhm.
about sort of vocational training and so on, skills.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that's what I had expected.
Ah,
However, for me, I was a radio man, always in the
right.
radio room, signaler. Being on all of the signal courses, the radio user, I become a regimental signal instructor to the highest level, and for me, that was ER. I wasn't a combat engineer, I wasn't in the trade thing, but I become a radio man at ER. Bob Williams, the
Mm.
late Bob Williams,
Yes.
Lawan
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm in good hands when I say Bob Williams,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And you know, and my host I've gone through as well. So I have an experience there, and it was a great experience. Good leadership, I must say, and the
And Bob
transition.
Williams was the RSM at that time because I
Right, Bob
remember
Williams.
he was the infantry and then he was sent to ER to become
Right. Good
right.
leadership. That transition
I
from
don't have experience of him in ER. What was he like as a RSM in ER? Because he was coming from the infantry. Was he still very regimental or what was he like over there?
Bob Williams was always regimental. Remember, Bob Williams was
Okay,
my
that's Bob Williams then.
Bob Williams was my deputy sergeant major in Newcastle. So
Right,
yeah,
right. That is his right. That
right.
makes sense. Right.
I was given the name Scaramouche. A number of soldiers will know me by that. More
That's
soldiers.
so. All right.
And then
What is that about? Scaramouche.
um Bob Williams saw me coming across the parade square one morning. And you're a tin out, and you're a recruit. Tin, just don't run and all that. And so look at the one that I'm favor in the Scaramouche.
All right. Okay. And it just stuck.
And it's stuck. Military goes, Winston.
That's how it works.
And it's stuck even now. A lot of people call it Scaramouche. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
When I
Okay.
hear that, I know it's a soldier. But
Okay.
Bob was he always said, hey, you're a soldier. I know you'll do foolishness, guys, but hear what happened. Don't get caught. Because if you get caught,
Yes, absolutely. So you're in ER, you say you're in the radio room, you're a signaler. What was ER working on in those days? What projects were they working on?
A lot of, I think there was a challenge in the rural here a lot of time as it relates to trucking water and so on. A lot
Right.
of that was going on. ER was very instrumental in restoring a number of communities, back then, as it even relates to this project that the government had,
Hmm.
removing zinc fences and there was this operation. So yeah, I was sort of doing that. And you know about operation other than war. So ER was going out there ensuring that the communities live well, so to speak, and live a quality of life that would be good for them. Building schools, bridges, repairing bridges and so on. Our combat engineers were excellent and doing that. And
Right.
so yeah, was out there, was working,
So, so you would have been familiar with people like Lieutenant Ronnie Blackwood and Lieutenant uh, Renwick Hall. You would be familiar with
oh
those people.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah, and
yeah.
that's a Waterhouse man too, yeah,
He's a
and
Waterhouse man too. That's what I know.
yeah,
Yes, yeah.
Waterhouse man, yeah,
That's
I
right. Yeah.
familiar with those people, and 001 Slater, late Bagger Martin, and so on,
Right. Yeah.
there, Major Brown and so on, yeah.
Right. So let me ask you this other question now. You come down from Newcastle, you're a private soldier. What is the life of a private soldier like, with your 3-year experience coming into the ER? What is the life as a private soldier like? How are you treated? How do you feel? All those things.
Yeah, interesting question. I always think that it's ironic that it's called private soldier because a private soldier life is never private. I believe that for me, and for many private soldiers, you are basically regulated, managed in a sense that everything you do supposed to be seen and you guided. You have to be guided and
Yes.
despite that, and that's natural, that's military,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And that's not necessarily the lowest rank, but because
Mhm.
recruit the lowest rank. But that was my life, and I was not one of the person, even back in Newcastle, who would be seen because I try to keep a low profile, so to speak.
Right.
I didn't stay too long as a private soldier when I joined the regular force.
Right.
I got promoted, rapidly, I'd want to
Right.
think, right? So yeah, but private soldier life was good and bad, and it's being private soldier, Winston.
Absolutely, yeah. The reason I ask is that I don't have that experience, so it's just to
Oh,
hear
okay.
other people tell you about their experience of it. But so you didn't spend a long time as a private soldier. What was your journey of promotion like? Where did you end up?
All right. Lance Corporal back in ER by 94. And then I ended up with the unit, HQ JDF. And I spent I promoted to corporal there and then sergeant.
Mm.
But guess what happened, Winston? I was reverted.
Oh no, what happened?
Straight down. Swimming, Winston. I don't like the water. I have a water phobia
So why were you reverted for that?
because I couldn't swim.
That's all. You're
Yeah,
supposed to be a combat engineer.
I
Combat
couldn't
engineer.
swim. Right. So
Right.
I was reverted to corporal because, and
Okay.
many people were, because
Uh,
promotion, one of the criteria for promotion was being able to pass the swim test.
Interest. Okay. Okay. I didn't.
And if you fail that, you will not be promoted, right? I
Right.
spent I spent 4 years as a sergeant, become substantive, and then eventually lose it. Not because I was a bad sergeant. I was a very
That's
hard worker. but couldn't swim.
That's a really interesting thing. I didn't actually know that was a, I suppose, but you said you were in HUJF at the time.
Yeah, I was at it at the time, right?
Oh.
That's where I got sergeant. But look, Winston, I must tell you, because it was a requirement in the
Uh-huh.
JDF, right?
Yeah.
And it relates to the units, right? A
Right.
lot of the unit tried, because at HQ JDF, I tell you this, they tried with me. They send me to go and swim. They tried, they really tried, but I could not make the swimming thing. Yeah, and based on the forces requirement, I
Right.
have to be reverted.
Right. Okay. Okay. I've not heard a story like that. I wasn't aware of it, but um yep. So that's why we have these interviews. We learn things which we
Yeah.
don't know. All right. So let me ask you this. What is it like to be reverted? When you're reverted, how do you feel? You can't go to the sergeant's mess. What is that like?
Winston, I know you have that answer, now, but I will answer it.
I need to hear you
It's
say
bad.
it, man.
It feels bad, Winston.
It must be a
Imagine
humiliating experience.
you were up there
Yes.
and you come down there
Yeah.
and you cannot go to the sergeant mess again with all those privileges, right?
Yeah.
So it felt bad for me.
Must have, yeah.
But I understand based on the requirement of the force, you know, and my deficiency that I have, right?
So were you marched in as a sergeant and marched out back as a corporal?
I like that.
I need to know
Exactly.
everything.
Oh, exactly. So I'm marching as a sergeant, march out back as a corporal. I was like, here you go. But Winston, I must say this. Wherever you are in life, you have to be humble.
Yes. That's
I always say, I never reach. Despite the fact that I'm Dr. White Doc,
yeah.
I'm never up there. I never reach. Because when you think that you reach, Winston, you start to disrespect people, right?
Yes.
If you disrespect people, you never know when you're gonna need them. But I was a sergeant who worked hard and respect those who I'm leading, right? And sometimes help them participatory leader.
Yes.
Right?
So
and when I get reverted, I was good.
So can you swim now?
I wasn't expecting that question, but no, Winston, I'm still afraid of the water.
All right, okay. I won't push you anymore on that. So you're in the infantry, you're in HUJF int, and you served there, and then at some point did you stay there until you left, or when did you leave? And
okay. Int unit was about 14 years.
14 years.
It was of my 26 or a little over 26 years in the entire Jamaica Defence Force. I've spent most of my time in int unit. I leave there not because I have to leave, but because again the swimming, and in extension of what I said to you, the requirement for re-engagement, that you have to pass the swim test again.
Swim test, right? Okay.
So that pushes me out as well. Perhaps if it wasn't for me not being able to swim, I would spend a little longer time in the JDF. Not necessarily would be there.
Right. Okay. So I can't do maths. Which year did you leave then?
2010? Yeah. 2010.
You're still a corporal then?
Look, 2010, Winston, from the regular force, I went back to the 3rd Battalion, Winston.
Right. Okay.
So I transitioned back to where I came from.
Right.
And leave there 2013, December. I remember the month, not necessarily the date. I was actually published as honorary discharge, so to speak, the same swimming thing. So the swimming thing carried me
right.
In a negative sense.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So that's your sort of JDF story. I think the swimming would be probably one of your worst memories. I've asked you all those questions. So let me ask you this one now. You've spent 26 years in the JDF. What did you learn?
You know, the JDF has taught me a lot of things. You know, leadership is critical, but also to be emotionally strong. There was this thing that we used to say in the JDF, you know, about being emotional. Soldiers, I forgot, the soldiers anthem or something like that, right? And we were trained to kill, and you know, yeah, emotionally strong. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that is critical. That has taught me, yeah, to be strong, and indeed it has also, JDF has also taught me that, hey, don't try to fight every war that comes to you. Yeah, there's something that you just need to leave, something that you don't,
Yes.
you,
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
Okay.
and I have gotten that from the JDF, and personally, emotional intelligence is critical, and relative trust. I say that because it's not everyone you must trust. I
Mhm.
have learned that in the military, and
Yes.
that, well, no. Bravo company, get there first, leave there late.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Get there first. That's a Bravo concept in my mind. And
Yeah.
my wife now will tell you that I will get there 15 minutes before and I will leave there late. That remains with me.
Yes. If you're not 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late. All right. So let me ask you another question then. Again, sticking with the JDF, we're going to, what is your best memory of all the 26 years? What would you say is your fondest memory of the JDF?
I in Manchester, no, Manchester, I think the
Mhm.
place, right?
Mm.
I actually lose my every barrel automatic HBA
Okay.
weapon.
Right.
There was, yeah, makeshift shift toilet. And you know, I went in there with the weapon and I came out without the weapon. When I went back in to see if the weapon was there, it was gone.
Sure.
And I always hear people saying, hey, if you lose your weapon, people look in places that the weapon cannot even hold. And Winston, I did that. I looked, I searched for that weapon. But you know it was a prank, right, Winston? You know, somebody just say, okay, leave it there. Let me hold it for him and see what he will do. And
Great.
yeah, and for one day,
What? That's a long time. Can't find your weapon.
can't find my weapon. You
Oh
know,
my
I'm
God.
stressed out, Winston.
What?
Stressed out.
So did you get punished for that in addition to all the stress?
No, I actually get warning for it. It was during a annual camp. And
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't penalized much for it, but I was sternly
That's
warned.
why you were over in Mansion Hill. Right.
Yeah, I was sternly warned. And you know, I tell you this, another memory is this Mafuta Hill in St. James. Yeah, I
Right.
forgot that. Mafuta Hill in St. James, there was what I call a hunger strike, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um,
What? A
here it
hunger
goes.
strike.
I know you want to hear about that, you know.
Yes. Yes.
We are in the bush,
Uh-huh.
right? And you know, when you go on training, you know, some soldiers see a nice lady, and you know, like her up and so on, right? And Winston, I tell you, for about 3 days or more, the entire camp have not had anything because it was said that that female, you know, is sick. And you understand what I'm saying? And
Right.
that is for me a real fun. You know, the whole
Oh.
camp silent and not eating anything. And it was a quote unquote dead camp, so to speak. And
Right.
that was
Mafuta Hill. So what caused them to start eating again? The hunger get too bad?
all right. Because they found out that the Zulu, we call them,
Right.
yeah,
The camp.
Zulu came with the message, you know, but it was wrong. Yeah, it was it was a no,
Oh,
it was a
oh,
yeah. So we thought it was not enough, but it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So the Zulu came back and said, hey, joke.
and
All right, let us eat again.
let's so the things that soldiers hear and do and think. Yes. All
You
right.
know, right?
Right. Okay. Mafuta Hill and Mansion Hill, two big memories. All right, let me move on to the next question then. So you've talked about those two, but I still have to ask you, what's, you know, the army runs and jokes, and you just told me a few of them. But what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you in the JDF, apart from being tricked by your mate at Newcastle and he punch you and knock you out? And what is the funniest thing that ever you saw or heard or happened to you in the JDF? It might not have been to you yourself, but it might have
Yeah.
been to somebody else.
Yeah, JDF is always fun and
Yeah.
you know, a level of seriousness because look, it's that ambivalence would have played out many times.
Yes.
For me, there are a number of fun times that I've had in the JDF, and a number of those were, you know, involve training because
Yes.
training can be fun as
Can be
well,
fun. Yeah.
right? Training can be fun, and you know we're always training. And I think one of my fun memory is the in the cookhouse. That wasn't necessarily training, but you know, in the
Yeah.
cookhouse, the late Bagger Martin, you know, great leader, but
Mhm.
very you know, we could not do anything in the cookhouse. And this thing that many persons will remember in my cookhouse, and you will never so what happened if anything is going on, you know, quote unquote wrong in the cookhouse, maybe we sit there eating other things or whatever, you know, we'll run out when we see the you know, the major coming. And I think a lot of time we were, you know, that was a challenge. Fatigue can be challenging. Fatigue can be challenging. Fatigue can be fun.
Fatigue meaning work party.
From the cookhouse, Winston. How can we have this discussion without talking about doing fatigue at the cookhouse?
Exactly. Yeah. and, you know, funny enough, when I interviewed Colonel Mills, he said this. He talked about a fatigue party that he went on as well. So yes, it's a trend.
The best fatigue happens in the cookhouse,
The
Winston.
cookhouse. Yes. Yeah.
Because you can get your bully beef, you can get your bread. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody
It's
wants fatigue.
good. Okay. All right. I'm going to switch from the JDF now. I heard a lot about your time in the JDF. When I spoke with you last week, I heard two little ones in the back. You have a family now. Tell me about your family now, if you don't mind.
No, that's all right. Great family. I'm really loving them. You know, we have been doing a lot together, and a baby, you would know, you know, you might have known, just coming to the play. She's 2 years old. She's very interesting. She you know, did an open heart surgery when she was 7 months. But you talk about brilliance. You know, she's extremely brilliant. I'm very proud of her. I have a stepson who is doing well, you know, as well. He's growing and growing well, right? You know, the challenges with teenagers, but you know, adolescents, but you know, it's very focused. We get in there. And an excellent wife who supports me, whatever happened, and you know, work hard with me as well, you know, to ensure that the family is okay. Yeah, so I have a very interesting family, very nice family.
Yes. Wow. So if you don't mind, so the open heart surgery, has all of that been resolved now? Or is she in care for that?
Yeah, it would be a continual
Right.
challenge, you know, but there's nothing, you know, too detrimental that affecting her now, you know. So she's a super baby, you know.
So I'm asking you this because that must affect you as a person, having to because it's not just a normal thing that you have the baby and the baby is just growing normally. You have to be a special kind of father to deal
Oh, yeah.
with that. So how
Oh,
has that changed you or shaped you as a father?
yeah. It tells me, one of the things, Winston, it allows me to understand her surgery, allows me to understand that, hey, you can do anything, daddy, if your daughter did that,
Right,
right?
right,
It
yeah,
propels me it encourages me to be, we talk about JDF and emotionally strong.
right.
She also add to that emotional strength that I have based on what she had gone through. So whatever I'm doing, and it's going to be difficult, I say to myself, what if my daughter, could have gone through that? So,
Oh, right.
so that has increased my adaptiveness, so to speak, my ability to move on, to do things, other that. And also, I I was said, it was said that I'm an excellent dad because I believe in the legacy, right, aspect of things, and how we grow our children. It is very important because it's a cliche to say that they are the future leaders, right?
Yes,
But indeed, they
yeah.
are the future, and what we instill in them will, sort of pave a way for a better society for us as well as we get older, Winston.
So absolutely,
They will
absolutely.
be taking charge, and we'll be living in a society where they are in
Yeah.
charge.
Yes, it's the young people who hold the keys to the future.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
So, okay, I've heard a little bit about your family life now. So I want to just focus now on you did 3JR service, you were working at DNG, you joined the regular force. So I imagine that you gave up your job at DNG. You
Right.
left the force. What happened after you left the force? You left the force in 2013. What have you been doing since 2013?
All right. Let me go back to 2009
Okay.
because in effect, I become sort of merged into civil society, right?
Okay.
In
Okay.
2009. Remember, I went back into the reserve,
Reserve. Right.
reserve,
Right.
not so I still have a part-time job.
Right.
So one of the good things about leaving the government system and having leaves, right,
Mm.
is that you're able to leave while still being there,
Yes. Yes.
right? If you know what I mean. So I went to Clancarty High School as the dean of discipline there. In fact,
Yeah.
that here, the government wanted a number of deans of discipline because there was a challenge in the high schools in
Right.
particular.
Right.
So I became the dean of discipline for Clancarty High School, and I spent about 4 years there, and 4 to 5 years there, and it's interesting how I move on to Excelsior Community College,
Right.
Winston.
Yes. Okay, so
Um,
Clancarty and then Excelsior.
yeah, I move on to Excelsior Community College. And then Excelsior was the director of safety and behavioral management there for 5 campuses. Indeed, I was sort of the dean of discipline for the community college, right? In charge of 5 campuses. That's where and I've been doing a number of professorship around the place at a number of colleges, College of Insurance and I know I hear it changed now from UCC to University College of the Commonwealth, something like that. Yeah. So I was lecturing there as well, and a number of other places. Yes,
Mhm.
I have done a whole lot. Become a justice of the peace in Kingstown.
Yes. Yeah.
Before I migrated in 2017. Yeah, a whole lot. I serve on the parole board as well in Jamaica. Um,
Okay.
for 3 years, I was a part of the parole board, and I've actually chaired the parole board twice, Winston. It was a privilege to do that.
That, right.
2 months because Justice, who was there with us, he wasn't well, and I was asked to chair
Sure.
the parole board.
And the parole board is that board which sort of looks at people who, tell me about the parole board just in case.
That's fine. The parole board sits once per month, and we will peruse the files of inmates who have applied to get parole. So we make the decision who should get parole and who should not get parole. The decision sits with us on the board, and naturally, like any board, it consists of people with different expertise. And
it's a hard responsibility because you're putting people back out into society.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but I tell you this, Winston, I was a part of the Jamaica Psychological Association, and I got a call to join the parole board as the resident psychologist on the
right.
So I became the resident psychologist on the parole board. So in terms of psychological matters and so on, they would lead to me to give advice.
Right. Okay. Fabulous. So you did all those things up to 2017 and you decided to leave Jamaica. Tell us what happened then when you decided to leave and what has happened since you have left.
All right. I'm a born Jamaican, and I decided, okay, family. So let's go to the United States. I continued, actually started my PhD back in Jamaica.
Okay.
So when I came to Florida now, I continued, right, the PhD. I started it at UWI. I continued at Nova University.
Right.
So I got my doctorate at Nova in education with organizational leadership concentration. So it's not education. It's organizational leadership, about strategic management, leadership, etc. Right? And I actually stayed there at Nova after I received my doctorate in 21, and I did my master's in public administration. And I am still at Nova. I am a lifelong learner, Winston. I with a master's in child protection and juvenile justice,
wow,
in 2026. Back in Jamaica, I went to Northern Caribbean University, where I did my bachelor's in counseling with industrial counseling minor, and stayed there to do my master's in psychology, counseling psychology, with educational psychology.
It's a lot of studying, man.
And finally, another master's that I've received is from UWI. I did that in organizational studies, and that really I achieved in lieu of my PhD, because I had to leave.
So you are an exceptionally qualified person. When you migrated to Florida, did that help you or did that hold you back? Because my experience when I went to the UK to live, my degrees held me back. Hey. But that's another story for another time.
Yeah, it can hold you back. It can hold you back. So indeed, it held me back a little. Yeah, definitely. It does.
And then, like, when you got there, how did you get a job and how did you set up your family, and what are the sort of communities that you have around you of support? What are the sort of things which helped you to settle into a new culture, a new environment?
It was difficult, Winston. It's difficult for us because of the age, right?
Yes, yeah.
Everything, and the fact that I would have established myself back in Jamaica, and to come here is like, rewinding, starting again,
all over.
Yeah, and it's psychological. It was psychologically challenging and physically demanding as well, because you have to be now doing things, and the degrees from Jamaica were evaluated and become aligned with the US degree. So I didn't have a challenge with that, right? But I realized that we're in a society that really do not care much about academics, but experience and the
what can you do? Yeah.
Right, a type of experience is critical. So no matter how educated you are in the United States, it might be challenging to move forward in terms of occupation.
It's exactly what I found in the UK.
Yeah.
In fact, there came a time when I had to strip off the degrees from all of my papers and just present myself as I can do this and I can do that. It was a big learning for me, but I'll
Yeah.
tell that story another time.
Yeah, you know, it
Yeah,
can be
yeah,
challenging.
yeah. No, it's a massive,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a difficult transition to leave your country and start over somewhere else. And so I know that there are lots of soldiers in Florida. How did they help you when you got there, or did they?
Yeah, I tell you this. When I came here, I decided I had my plan, Winston. I mean, I'm a soldier. We preparation and planning. So I start to strategize. You know,
Yes.
okay, we'll survive. How things will go. And one of my strategies is that networking concept.
Right. Yes.
I,
Yeah.
and in strategizing that, I have to look back at what I have in Jamaica,
Mhm.
as it relates to St. George's College Old Boys Association
Right.
and the JESA, Jamaica Ex-Soldiers Association. So
Right.
I started to make some calls,
Mhm.
you know, so a few persons have adopted me from both organizations and, you know, guided me a bit. But you know, as best as they could. So indeed, I've got help from the members of ex-members of the JDF in
Mhm.
terms of guidance and so on.
Right.
So,
Right.
so yes, they're with me.
So what is life like in Florida now? I think you mentioned that you also lived a little time in New York. What is it like? Is it a good life? Is it a better life? How do you feel about being there? Is America your home now?
Yeah. America, let me tell you, America is not necessarily, I'd not like to say it's a better life, right? But it's a good life.
Good life.
Jamaica also have a lot of things that America has now, right?
Right.
And Jamaica is indeed developing a number of things that we are seeing here in America. We go down to Jamaica and see it. Um, New York is not my cup of tea.
What is that?
It's cold and it's clustered, and New York City in particular can be challenging in
Yeah.
terms of the infrastructure and
Mhm.
you know, other aspect
When I
of
hear
life.
that every corner you walk around in New York, you see a soldier, an ex-soldier.
Yeah, oh yeah, a lot of exposures are in New York and
Right.
New York City and a lot of Jamaicans, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Right. But it can be clustered.
Right.
I came into Florida, and you know, Florida is sort of a spacious sort
Yes.
of a
Right. Yes.
right.
Yes. That's true.
The
Yeah.
roads are broader, you know,
Yeah.
and this sort of a food desert that is in New York, right? You don't find that in Florida. So you're close to everything.
Yes. Right. And yeah. Okay. Fabulous.
So I prefer Florida, not because I started there. I
Mhm.
spent 1 year in New York, almost 2 years in New York, and it's never my cup of tea. So
Gotcha.
after I'm back in Florida,
You're a Florida man. All right.
I'm a
So,
Florida man.
right. And I see that you have been given back to the JDF community by your sort of knowledge break on the connection. Can you just, well, most people will know what it is, but what are you trying to do in the knowledge break?
All right. Look, I write a lot. Let me go there first. I write a lot, Winston. I have a number of books on Amazon, right? And
Yes.
yeah, I write because I believe in giving back knowledge.
Yes. Yes.
I believe why I'm doing this education thing and keep studying is because I think that's the only thing that I really own, education. That's the only investment that I will get a return that belongs to me.
Right.
Nobody can take it from you. You
Yes.
cannot leave your PhD and your this and your that and your will, right? So guess what happened?
That's
Guess
funny.
what happened now instead? And I mean, that's what propels me. Guess what happened? I can share it. If I'm pregnant with knowledge, I can share that knowledge with you. I can share it with the man down the street. I can. So the knowledge break is part, you know, sort of spin off of that concept, writing those books, the Knowledge Break, the podcast as well, right? It's sort of a spin-off of that concept. Let me share what I know. Let me
Yes.
share what I'm getting in terms
Yes.
of with others. Being a professor, also a spin-off of that concept. I can share it, but I will not leave it with you. You cannot take it away from me. This is what I own. Winston, the pen that you're using, you don't own it. Somebody can come and take it away from you.
Right.
Can they take this away from me? No.
Yes. Yes.
So I share the knowledge break with soldiers and other groups, because it started with the World Connection, but trust me, Winston, it spread and people asking for it over and over. If it's not on their group, they, hey, what happened there? I don't hear the knowledge break. We want it. So the knowledge break has become a thing, even overseas as well, because it's on Upper Podcast, and a number of persons have been listening to it in many countries, in Europe, in Africa, the Caribbean, and it's being spread all over. But thanks to World Connection for starting.
For starting it. Isn't that amazing, huh? Soldiers go everywhere and they do things.
Yeah.
All right. So I have asked you about your early life. I've asked you about your life in the JDF. You said a private soldier's life is never private. Then you talked about wherever you are in life, you have to be humble. And then we talked about your life now in the US and all the things that you're doing there. And then you said you can't leave your PhD on your will. I write these things down because they sound simple, but they are so profound. A private soldier's life is never private. I had never thought of that. I couldn't have thought of that. So it never occurred to me that a private soldier's life is never private. But when you say it, I get it. It's profound. But until somebody says it to you, and especially if you've never been a private soldier, you can't know. So it's a really deep thing. And then the last thing you said, you can't leave your PhD on your will. It's kind of funny, but it's so true as well. So my last question to you is, do you have any, is there a question that you wanted me to ask that I haven't asked you?
Well, yeah, you have answered that, but there are always questions that is actually unasked. Yeah, and you know, so definitely. But I tell you this, my podcast is Canute Exploration, CANYOUTH Exploration, and it's on YouTube channel, and several books on Amazon, Winston. You know, good read. A lot of them, if not all, because
you can talk about them. And what are the books you have on Amazon?
All right, I have Weird People Started, not weird, as in being weird.
Yes, that I meant to ask you about that. Tell me about this weird thing. Weird people, yes. Yeah.
And let me declare this from now. Self-awareness, not self-awareness, self-awareness was coined by me. It's nowhere.
Yes.
Let me declare that from now. So that 100 years from now, people will be listening to this and hear me saying that, right? So I decided that, no, man, a lot of us are really weird. We have been doing some weird things. But are we owning that
weirdness?
And owning that weirdness means that we are self-aware. We are in touch with our weirdness. We love it. We own it. And we don't care what anybody says.
Like I talk to myself in the mirror, and my kids say, Daddy, you're talking to yourself in the bathroom again. I say, yes, that's how I make money. And they say, you're weird. I say, yes, but when you're spending money, you know, I'm not weird. So I get it.
Yeah, you're self-aware, right? So I decided I want to write a book. That's a small book. If you see it on Amazon, it's maybe about 15 pages. Yeah. Right. Yeah, just looking at a few things and doing some research, some interviews with some people and documenting. And it talks about the different types of lies too. You know, we can talk about that some other time. But I decided, why not call this book Weird People Started? I love to play with words, Winston. Weird People Started sounds like where people started. Where people started,
yes. Yeah. Okay.
So that's where that comes from.
And what sort of things do you cover in that book?
I actually sort of categorize types of lies right? I cover this thing about being a clean slate. I know we just adapt things. John Locke had said that, or we adapt things from the environment and we become dirty, so to speak, based on, but we were born like a clean sheet, right? A
Right.
clean sheet. I covered that, and I did some interviews with some persons who had done weird things, and I document that in the book. You know, these people are weird, and I researched some individuals who own their weirdness, you know, and I classified them through my concept as being highly self-aware. Yeah, so those are some of the things I cover, and it basically explains to the readers what self-awareness really means and how they can become self-aware, and you know, and where the concept really comes from.
It's a
But
fascinating concept. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and then the podcast that you do, who's your partner in your podcast? Because I heard you
I
talking to that lady on one occasion. Do you get
yeah.
different partners?
All right, put it this way. I'm a loner in that podcast in terms of
Okay.
host, right? But I talk to many people from around the world, you know, Canada, Australia, all over, um, and Jamaica as well, naturally. And I talk to people about different topics: politics, education, human trafficking, name them. You know, we talk. I've been doing this since Gilbert, several years now, and yes, it has been going, you know, doing well. In fact, a number of persons had actually contacted me about being on my show, and I have to find space for them
Yeah.
now to get these interviews done. It's pre-recorded, all right. I
Okay.
usually do it live, but I stopped doing it like that, so I pre-record it and you know, get it released, audio and the video, and it's really interesting. I've learned a lot from my
I
guests.
can imagine. Yes, I can imagine. Wow. So you don't get bored then. Children writing
Uh,
books, doing podcasts, working. You don't get bored.
no, and I love to laugh, you know, and you watch my podcast, you watch the
Yeah.
episode. A lot of times you see me laughing, and I
Yes.
meet wonderful people, Winston, and that is critical. And people
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
touch base with me when you come to Australia. Talk to me. You know, I'll call you, and I become friends with a number of them. You know,
Imagine
those.
that. Yes. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the man from Waterhouse. Where exactly in Waterhouse were you born?
Penwood Road, a place that called
Penwood.
Ma. Yeah.
Penwood Road.
No,
Okay.
no, look, Winston, I wasn't born there, you know.
Mhm.
I grew up there from age 6. I was born at a place on Spanish Town Road called Kirby Lane, I was told.
Ah,
And then
okay.
we moved into Nelson Street. That's then Town, right?
Yes.
Nelson Street. And my father used to have a little, you know, a few houses, you know, love the real estate thing here and there. So,
Mm.
you know, we moved into our own place, you know. So we moved into Nelson Street. And that's where in one of my books, Soaring Through Turmoil, you will see the Nelson Street story, the Denham Town story with soldiers all over the place and the war and you
Mm.
know, gunmen coming from the rooftop when we are outside and we have to run inside and you know it's an amazing story and
So,
Soaring Through
so
Turmoil.
you've literally told your story in a book already.
Yeah, Soaring Through Turmoil. You
Soaring
know,
through turmoil.
yeah, I talk about I've written about the Nelson Street challenges and you
Yes.
know and coming right up to St. George's College, you know,
Right.
that first job after school and you know not doing particularly well in high school, you know, and so on. I talked a lot about my mother's death and my
Yes.
brother and
Right.
so on. Yeah,
Right.
a number of things.
Gentlemen, there you have it, the sort of 1 hour version or the 1 hour and 20-minute version of the life of our colleague, Dr. Canute White. If you want to know more, get the book Soaring Through Turmoil. It's on Amazon. I'm not advertising, but I'm just telling you. Canute, it's a
The
real
story
pleasure.
continue, right?
Exactly. It's a real pleasure talking with you and hearing your story. And as I say, everybody has a story. And leave it to Mr. JDF to get the next person to tell their story. Once he gives me the go ahead, I do the interviews. But it's been a real pleasure listening to your story and listening to you soar through turmoil from Waterhouse right through up and up and up, but at the same time remaining humble, as you say in your own words. I couldn't have put it better. It's a fascinating story. Great talking to you. I am going to be sending this to Mr. JDF now, and he will do the rest. And then tomorrow, once everybody has listened to it, they will have a chance to ask you questions. So maybe you'll get questions which I didn't raise today, but
All right,
tomorrow you will have to answer those.
all
So
right.
thank you, really, thank you ever so much for spending time with me on the podcast today. And I'll be online tomorrow listening to it, but I won't ask anything and I'll just be there as a silent observer to what else you have to say.
All
Thank you
right.
very much, Canute. Thank you ever so much. Thank you so much.
It's a
Take
pleasure,
care.
Winston.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.